Are you gearing up for your first craft show and feeling just a little bit overwhelmed? Well, I have been doing craft shows for over 8 years, and over that time, I have learned a lot. That's why I created this craft show blueprint video series. It's designed to take you from totally overwhelmed to ready to go in 5 videos. I even compiled everything from the video series for you in a free checklist that's available on my website. The link is in the description. In this episode, we're focusing specifically on how to find and apply to markets, along with how to spot the red flags so that you can only apply to markets that are actually worth your time. If we haven't met yet, my name is Melissa. I run a brand design studio by day and a handmade product business by night. And on this channel, I love to talk about handmade business and share the journey with you guys, along with anything I might have learned along the way. Before we begin, just a quick reminder, if you're finding these tips helpful, would you please hit that like button for me? It really helps the series reach other makers who are just starting out too. Now let's dig in. So the first question naturally is, where do you find them? The easiest place to find markets are on social media. So Instagram, Facebook, look at Facebook vendor groups. You can also look at local Facebook groups or local Instagram channels and things like that for local events that are happening. However, just know, most events you do have to apply in advance. So if you're seeing some of these as they're popping up, like if it's happening next week, there's a good chance you won't be able to get in, but it is good to put on your radar and follow up later in the year. I have found that with craft shows. Sometimes you learn about a market, but then you can't actually participate till the following year because there's such advanced planning for them. Most markets will have an application process. This is very normal. If a market does not have an application process, it can be a little bit of a red flag, because an application process is a sign of a market that wants to carefully vet and curate the vendors that are at their event to provide a high quality, interesting mix of vendors for their shoppers. And you actually want this, even though it requires jumping through a few more hoops for you, because those types of markets, when they've got a really wonderful high quality vendor mix, those tend to be more appealing for shoppers. And the more appealing a market is for a shopper, the better you will potentially do at it as a vendor. Another red flag can be if a market reaches out to you to participate in their market. Normally, that's an indicator that the market's getting close and they still have a lot of spots left. And if they have spots left, there's probably a good reason for that. They may be a very new market that people don't want to gamble on. There may be some red flags about the market itself, like maybe the location, or maybe the booth pricing's really high, or maybe they haven't been promoting it at all, or maybe it's on a market weekend that is shared with other larger, more prominent, popularly attended events, so they're having a hard time getting people at their show because there's these other competing events. If that's the case, you will potentially see reduced sales at this event because probably the community is used to going out to those larger competing events. So if you have a market reach out to you, I'm not saying not to participate, but it can be a red flag because of the reasons I just mentioned. However, I actually did participate in one market that reached out to me, and that market ended up being fantastic, and I ended up participating with them for years. So it's not necessarily if someone reaches out to you, it's for sure terrible, but just know it's a possible red flag and just adjust your expectations accordingly. All legitimate markets will have a vendor fee for participation. This can range from $50 to $400 or even more for really big events. While that can be hard to swallow, those fees go to cover the costs of putting the market on, which you want your organizers to put on a good market for you. In my experience, the greater the booth fee, the bigger and probably more successful the event. It's not always perfectly correlated like that, but that tends to be what happens. So if you're paying less for a market, there's a good chance it won't get as big of a crowd and you probably won't sell quite as much. But you also paid a lot less to be there. If you're paying one of those higher booth fees, you're probably getting a bigger space with more promotion and probably more traffic, which will hopefully result for you in more sales. But with that being said, you really have to evaluate it on your own what works for you. I've definitely done events that have a smaller booth fee that I do great at. Conversely, I've done events that have paid a lot of money to be at and my sales have not been that great. So you never all the way know, but that is a general indicator, the price of the booth fee. Sometimes someone will offer you the option to pop up maybe at their store for free. My experience is that you get what you pay for. Usually those little pop-ups, I don't sell a ton at those, but that doesn't mean they aren't still a great opportunity to meet more customers, to get more exposure to more people. So I definitely would say don't write them off entirely, but again, adjust your expectations. Finally, different states, cities, and markets have different rules around licensing, but know that you might be required to get a TPT license, which is a sales tax license, so that you can submit that sales tax to your state. Additionally, some cities do require you have a transient business license to participate in their market. You can find that out by calling the city or asking the market organizer. Once you're accepted, you'll be provided with a way to book your spot. Sometimes this is an invoice sent directly to you. Sometimes this is a private link on a website. When you're selecting your spot, you'll most likely be offered either a 10 by 10 or some markets offer a table space, which is usually roughly 6 feet wide by about 5 feet deep. Just enough for one 6-foot table and you to stand behind it. 10 by 10s almost always require a tent setup, whereas a table space just involves you, a table, and maybe a market umbrella if your organizer allows it. I personally prefer a table space because they're just so much easier to set up, but for me, my products are rather small, so a table space serves them plenty well. If you want to learn more about my super simple craft show setup, I have an entire video about it, and I will leave the link right there. If you have larger products, a table space might not work so well for you, and you may want to default to events that only offer 10 by 10 spaces. It's my recommendation, if you're just starting out, you might want to start small, just so you can kind of learn incrementally, rather than having to make all these big investments to fill a large space right out of the gate. Most markets will not immediately assign you your space in the overall floor plan of the market. Usually organizers work on that closer to the time of the event, and they will usually email you that information within about a week of the event. So it's not abnormal if you don't know that right away. I have a couple final lessons for you. First of all of this I'm sure was quite overwhelming. It is a lot to take in. It is a lot to learn to do markets and get used to doing markets. Do not beat yourself up. You are going to learn things as you go. You will not get it perfect out of the gate. Like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm still changing things 8 years later, and if you can't tell, I'm pretty analytical and I still haven't 100% cracked the code. So do not beat yourself up. The fact of the matter is, craft shows, you just never know. You can never predict them. Even if you've participated in the same event before, sometimes it goes totally different. I have learned a lot over the years. You will learn a lot over the years too. So like I said before, do not beat yourself up. Just accept that it's an ever-evolving thing where you're always going to be learning and growing. But hopefully this video has helped you shortcut some of the lessons that I had to learn the hard way. I really hope this episode of the Craft Show Blueprint helps you feel more confident about preparing for your first market. And if you want to learn more, you can watch the entire series in this playlist right up there. And don't forget to grab the free checklist from the link in the description. It recaps everything we've been talking about throughout this series in one convenient place so that you don't miss a thing. If you enjoyed this video, would you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more handmade product business tips? Thanks so much for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.